So, chapter 13 of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex is finally here, and it really represents a drastic shift in the focus of Boruto's story. We also have the reveal of a new Shinjutsu ability, Boruto having multiple timelines, and even the creation of a new Shinju entity. So, we have a lot to discuss, but of course we're gonna start from the top. So the person on the cover for this month is Boruto himself, and the title of the chapter is Prescience, not pre-science, prescience, and you guys will know why later on in this video. But yeah, the chapter pretty much picks up from the last page in chapter 12 with Jura observing Boruto. He then says, "You are an intriguing lad. I regret doing this, but farewell, Uzumaki Boruto." I we see him charging his overpowered Biju Bomb laser ability that he's able to shoot from miles away with peak accuracy for some reason. But that's when the bug Shinju suddenly pops up from Jura's clothing saying, "Whoops, am I interrupting?" Now this pretty much confirms that the clothing on Jura's body isn't just a representation of Code's claw mark, it is a claw mark. So this means that the Shinjus can find Code at any point in time because he has the claw mark on his forehead. Now of course this isn't relevant to this chapter, but I just wanted to mention it because it was a discussion prior. Now Jura then says, "Mamushi, what is it?" So this confirms that the bug Shinju's name is Mamushi. He then says that Matsuri is back, and based on her investigation it seems likely that Boruto has an accomplice. That's when Jura looks at Boruto and says, "I see." So that's his source of intel on the Thorn Soul Bulb. The bug Shinju then says, "Hey, the Thorn Soul Bulb you're holding, did Hidari get himself killed?" Jura then says, "Our foe is formidable. Let's retreat. We can't let Hidari's bulb rot. Otsutsuki Boruto, you're truly a lucky man. It seems as if the heavens are decreeing that you remain alive. Perhaps this is some divine intervention." So yeah, Jura pretty much leaves Boruto alive, and that was his justification. Now I just want to say that this doesn't mean that Boruto would have defeated Jura, obviously, because Boruto isn't healed, he's still unconscious. And it also isn't purely because Hidari's bulb was about to rot, because the bug Shinju could have taken it to the 10th house dimension and done it himself, as seen by Matsuri doing something similar later on in the chapter. So I think it's just all of those things coming together, such as the bug Shinju interrupting him just as he's about to fire, and then drawing his attention back to the state of the Thorn Soul Bulb. So it's just like in real life when you're going to do something, or when you're trying to do something and then a lot of things keep happening and you're like, maybe I shouldn't do this because of all of these coincidences, and then you decide not to do it and blame it on the universe pointing you in a different direction and call it divine intervention. So it definitely is convenient for the plot of the manga, but it also does make sense in the context of Jura's character. Now getting back to the chapter, we see Boruto on the ground and he's gradually losing consciousness and he just slowly fades away. We then enter flashback mode and we see Boruto hiding from a few ninjas. They seem to be sand ninjas, so Boruto is in the sand village area. That's when a voice says, "I finally found you, Boruto." Boruto then quickly turns around and it's just Philibert the frog. He then says there's roughly 20 shinobi in this area, so you are trapped, Boruto, and yet you can't really kill innocent folk. So this was mistranslated in the unofficial leaks and it made it seem like he stopped Boruto from killing those innocent ninjas, but he's more so pointing out that Boruto wouldn't have killed those ninjas. So that's why I kind of waited before I did the review, because a lot of the translations didn't make sense, including the name of the new Shinjutsu ability, but we're gonna get to that soon. Now Boruto of course has no idea who this is and he tells him to relax, he's not a foe. Boruto then starts to get anxious and tells him to spill it and asks him what his motive was. He then says, "Let's get out of here first, touch the back of this toad." Now of course Boruto is a bit anxious here because it's just a random talking toad telling him to touch its back, so it's a bit weird. But the toad then says there isn't any time to waver. No matter where you end up, it'll still be better than here, right? Or are you scared of toads? Boruto then says damn it and grabs the back of the toad, and that's when we skip over to this unknown person or mysterious person doing a summoning jutsu, and that then summons the toad and Boruto to his location. He then goes on to tell Boruto that the location is near the Land of Wind, one of Orochimaru's abandoned bases. "I've camouflaged the already inconspicuous entrance with Genjutsu. We won't be found that easily. By the way, that toad is a scientific ninja tool. He's structurally identical to a real toad except man-made. I manipulated him remotely using my chakra. That was me you were talking to, not the toad himself." Boruto then says, "Who are you? You seem to know me." He then raises up his broken mask and says, "Does this ring a bell?" Boruto then says, "That mask, no way." And that's when it's revealed to be Kashin Koji himself. Boruto then says, how could I forget? You're the one who killed Master Ao or Ao. I don't even know which one it is, but it's relevant, of course. He then says, and tried to kill me and Master Konohamaru too. But Kashin Koji just ignores this and says, can you verify just one thing? Have you been Uzumaki Boruto from the moment you were born up to now? Yes or no? Answer me straight. Boruto then says, you know of it, omnipotence. Kashin Koji replied saying, omnipotence huh? Which pretty much implies that he didn't know the name of the ability. But he goes on to say, inside my head, you are Boruto, Ishiki's vessel who fled Kara. My perception is that Amado and I helped you break out. But I'm wrong, no? So this pretty much confirms that Kashin Koji is indeed affected by omnipotence. But of course you guys might be confused as to why he knows who Boruto is, and we're gonna get to that soon. So he then goes on to say that, I don't know a lot about the ability you called omnipotence. However, I do have an appreciation of the results it brought about. So that day you were chased from your village. It appears that everyone's memories related to you and Kawaki did get flipped. Boruto of course is shocked by this, and he goes on to say that I don't understand. Clearly omnipotence affected your memory as well. So how can you grasp the actual state of things so objectively? Kashin Koji then replied saying that it's because I knew that the possibility this would end up happening was high, ahead of time. He then says, I owe you an apology. Even if it was to stop Ishiki, I still followed orders and fought all of you. For that I am truly sorry. Boruto then says, I'm a shinobi too. I know the weight of a mission, plus the frustration of not being able to vindicate oneself, as someone who's experienced that for quite a long while now. Now this is where it kinda gets interesting. So Kashin Koji goes on to say that, as you already know, I was created by Amado in order to defeat Ishiki and consequently stop his planet-destroying Divine Tree plan. His power far exceeded any of our imaginations, but I was satisfied, because I had completed my duty the moment I managed to drag him out of Jigen. I had no fear nor any regrets. I could leave the rest to the Okage. I just quietly awaited death. But then it happened suddenly. As I watched various scenes flash by one after the other, I realized that these were glimpses of future realities. And for any of you guys who can't see, because I know some of you guys can only listen to it, this power to see different futures is pretty much shown on multiple strips of film. So it's basically showing what happened with Ishiki, Barenmo, Naruto, what happened between Boruto and Kawaki. So everything that happened from Kashin Koji defeated Jigen is pretty much shown to him in this moment in time. It also shows the Shinjus themselves with a mysterious Shinju in the back which looks much like Shinki, and I think it is Shinki, but we're gonna discuss that in a different video, but it does look a lot like Shinki. Now Kashin Koji then goes on to say that I realized that Ishiki's death wasn't enough, that until the Ten Tails itself was destroyed, this planet would continue to be in danger. So there were still things that I needed to do. I couldn't afford to die. He then says, since then, by comparing what actually took place against the myriad of visions I saw that day, I've deepened my understanding and conviction about this ability. Boruto then says, are you saying that you knew omnipotence would flip me and Kawaki's positions before it even happened? He then says that is right, although there are still parts I'm confirming for the first time through this conversation, since my perception is that Kawaki has always been the Okage's son. Boruto then pretty much asked him what are the details of the ability and how he came to possess it. He then goes on to say that I'm sure Amado told you about Shibai Otsutsuki. The Otsutsuki who devoured countless planets long ago, acquired all sorts of Shinjutsu and even called a god. He then goes on to say that each of us car members who was given enhanced modifications by Amado received transplants of Shibai's cells without fail, in hopes that we would manifest at least one of his many Shinjutsu, though whether we'd successfully gain any ability was a matter of luck. As a result, Code can make claw marks, Daemon can reflect attacks, and Ada has her own godlike abilities. But neither Boro, Delta, nor myself demonstrated any Shinjutsu. And yet when cornered by Ishiki upon facing almost certain death, one abruptly emerged. The ability to see all possible futures called prescience. Now before we proceed with the chapter, I just want to address something because we didn't know that every member of Kara possessed Shibai's cells, or at least all of the modified members. So Code's claw mark is now confirmed to be from Shibai. Ada's ability and Daemon's we already knew came from Shibai himself, and Koji now possesses an ability as well. So this implies that maybe Delta could develop one of Shibai's many other Shinjutsus because Delta is still alive. So we'll see how that plays out, but of course Boro is gone, so you know, that is what it is. But this is very interesting because it does also explain why these characters were so strong, such as Delta being somewhat relative to Naruto and even Boro thinking that he could take on Sasuke even though he was a bit weakened. So this does kind of make more sense. But yeah, it pretty much goes on to say that this may sound obvious to you, but our future isn't simply one straight path. Many narratives get snuffed out based on which branch of each multi-forked crossroad is taken. It's a battle royale between destinies, so to speak. Take one fate we've already escaped. If Ishiki had killed the Hokage, he'd have resurrected in Kawaki's body and planted a divine tree. The planet would have been destroyed. That ended up not happening, but there was a sufficient likelihood that it would. Another example would be the day Kawaki caused the Hokage to disappear, when the two of you quarreled. Say Kawaki managed to kill you, as well as Uchiha Sarada, who tried to help. In this case, you and Kawaki would never switch positions. Kawaki would go on to lose to a tremendously strong code and be devoured by the Ten-Tails, and then the Divine Tree would destroy the planet. It's difficult to prove what I've seen, especially given the events that didn't occur. What I want you to understand is that our future has continuously been walking a dangerous tightrope for several years now. So this pretty much confirmed that Kawaki is indeed weaker than Code. He would have gotten beaten by Code pre-consumption of the chakra fruits. I did see someone saying that, this is Code after he became an Otsutsuki, but based on what was said here, he killed Kawaki, fed him to the god tree, and then destroyed the planet, so he would have needed to defeat him before getting the chakra fruit. Now this does depend on when this happened in the time skip, because it could be that it was a weaker Kawaki that hadn't trained as yet, because Code became unlimited before the time skip, so this isn't actually 100% confirmed, but it does imply that he's stronger than Kawaki. Now the crazy part about this is that I did make a video a few months ago, and I did do a different video that kind of rehashed the same thing later on, and it explained that Boruto should have died on top of the Hokage monument that same day, and Kashin Koji pretty much confirmed this in this chapter. So that theory was right, and it basically backs up everything about Boruto knowing about the future of the Ten-Tails, and also what happened in chapter 1 when Boruto said that, is this the only possible outcome? So that video pretty much goes over why Boruto had multiple timelines, and this chapter pretty much confirmed it. Now you guys can go watch that video if you guys want to, or you can wait for the updated video that's gonna come out later this week that explains the ability in depth, and it's gonna feature elements from that video, so you guys can decide what you want to do. By the way, almost 80% of you guys are not subscribed to the channel, so if you guys are enjoying the content and you guys want to see more of this type of content and even the theory videos or power scaling videos, go ahead and subscribe, and also ring that notification bell to be notified when I post new videos, and also join the Discord. The link will be linked down below. Now Boruto then goes on to say that that's one downright crazy story, but I can't ignore the fact that you really get what happened thanks to omnipotence, despite how extraordinary it is. I'd rather not believe that you really saw all futures, yet it sure seems not to be completely baseless bull either, I have to admit. He then goes on to say that aren't things just gonna happen a certain way no matter what? So seeing all sorts of futures, how is that useful? Kashin Koji replied saying that the biggest advantage is intel. For example, your life on the run. It could prevent you from ending up cornered like before. Or it could impart to the present you moves and jutsus future you has mastered. Wouldn't that accelerate learning and optimize training? Now Boruto is kinda shocked and also excited about this, and he asked him if it's possible. Kashin Koji then goes on to say there's no timeline paradox since I'm only relaying what I saw. It's totally standard procedure for prescience. Now of course this is for the audience and not for Boruto, because Boruto didn't say that, so it's just more so the author trying to explain to the audience that this won't cause any issues. Now it then goes on to say that he'll tell him how to rescue Sasuke from the tree, but first I need you to understand the very worst future that's possible right now. Ten-Tails will break free from Code's control and even evolve in a new way. They'll likely show up before us as multiple Divine Tree people who possess individual minds. It would be ideal to dispose of the Ten-Tails root and branch before that, but the likelihood we'd succeed is low. In nearly all possible futures I see, there are Divine Tree people, and the most dangerous among them is their leader, Jura. Boruto, he's going to kill you. So yeah, this pretty much debunks the theories about Bug being the secret mastermind behind the scenes. That was absolutely crazy initially, but like there it is, confirmation, you can stop the nonsense. But it then goes on to say that it's not an absolute thing, but many possible futures show it happening. And what follows is pretty similar. Kawaki gets devoured and our planet dies. So in all possible futures, Kawaki gets devoured, no matter what happens. He then says, obviously this must not come to pass. We cannot let the worst case become reality, which is referring to the planet being destroyed. As I mentioned earlier, there are infinite possible futures. And through you learning about this at this point in time, our futures already started to change one tick at a time. And I also mentioned this in my video, which is crazy, but yep, the future is changing just by Boruto knowing the future, which means that when Boruto saw the future in chapter 75 through Momoshiki's ability, that also adjusted his future back then. Now Boruto then dips into his Naruto bag and says, whether it's stopping a divine tree plan or whatnot, I'll never agree to any option that involves killing Kawaki. Understand? Cause knocking sense into my idiot bro and restoring the Uzumaki household is my goal. Whatever the case, the 10 tails is in my way, that much is clear. So don't bother wasting your breath. I'll do it. Finish off Code and the 10 tails both. Now this part is really interesting to me because Kashin Koji has this weird look on his face like he doesn't agree with Boruto's stance on Kawaki, and I don't think this is due to Kashin Koji hating Kawaki or anything like that. I think it's because he saw the timeline in chapter 1 where Kawaki destroys the village and Boruto has to fight him. So there's pretty much multiple timelines in which the Shinju win the battle, and maybe there's like 1 or 2 timelines in which Boruto defeats the Shinju, but then Kawaki becomes his enemy. So Kashin Koji already knows of this only possible future that Boruto mentions in episode 1 or chapter 1. So he knows that Kawaki is going to become a bad guy eventually. So yeah, we'll see how that plays out. Now we then skip over to Boruto on the ground. You know, he's kind of unconscious. Konohamaru points out that the bone in Sarada's hand is pretty fine, but there's damage to the nerves. Now that's when Himori wakes up, you know, pretty convenient, and she runs over to heal Sarada's hand, and then Sumire calls her over to heal Boruto as well. But of course Kawaki stops her, telling her not to go near him, and of course this gets Sarada pretty upset. But he then goes on to clarify, saying, don't misunderstand, I'll let her heal him. We just gotta do something first. Konohamaru then walks over and places some handcuffs on Boruto and says that this will prevent him from doing jutsu. Now these aren't normal cuffs, of course, these are sealing cuffs created by Amado himself, so it has some sort of function that prevents him from molding jutsu. He then tells Sarada not to complain, it's a measure dictated by law. We need the intel he possesses. So it's pretty much that he's not being malicious, it's just like customary to do this. And one thing to point out is that Kawaki is actually being smart. He's not rushing in trying to finish off Boruto. This is his final chance to do it. No, he's being smart. He knows that Boruto has info and he wants to get that information out of Boruto. Now, once he gets that info, we'll see what happens then, but at this point in time, he doesn't want to kill Boruto. But speaking of Kawaki being smart, he then notices the toad inside Boruto's clothing. He grabs him and says, isn't this Kashin Koji's? And that's when the toad disappears. Konohamaru then asks him, you know, what is it? And he tells him, nah, it's nothing. So it's not like divulging that information to Konohamaru, he's keeping it to himself. Now then skip over to the 10 tails dimension and shows the Jura Shinju resurrecting Hidari by placing the Thorn Soul bulb on the black cube. And it shows the vines pretty much coming down to heal him or reconstruct his body. He then asks him if everything is okay, and he says, who knows, I can't tell. Jura then says, I see, seems you know that you are Hidari. Good. Your identity appears to be strong and intact. Now that's when the Matsuri Shinju kinda chips in and says, Jura, isn't it time? I'm chomping at the bit to see what's gonna emerge. He then says, fine, harvest it. And that's when you see them take another Thorn Soul bulb from the tree itself and place it on top of the cube. The final panel says, now what to name you? Now I know that everyone is going to say that this is the Shinki Shinju that we saw in the prior panel, but I don't think that's the case, because what would be the reason for being ambiguous about the Shinju shown in the last panel if you already revealed that Shinju in a prior panel? So I think it's just a classic misdirection by Kishimoto, and I think they're going to get Shinki later on when they try to attack Kashin Koji in the Land of Wind, because the Sand Village is in the Land of Wind. So that's kind of an early prediction for chapter 14, you know, but yeah, you guys can take it as you will. But yeah, that's it for the video, guys. Let me know your thoughts down below. I'm not going to go over every single thing in this video. Of course, we're going to save it for actual videos, so look out for a video that goes more in depth on the Kakashi thing, and also videos on Shinki and, you know, the Rasengan, Vanishing Rasengan. I have a lot of videos coming up, so look out for those videos. Let me know your thoughts on this chapter down below. Do you think it was a good chapter? I think it was great. And yeah, drop a like if you liked it, and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.